America is the land where bigger always means better. But sometimes engineers go too far. These machines were so wild, powerful, or just plain insane. They were banned, destroyed, or simply never released. Here are 5 American beasts that were just too crazy for the roads.
Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the forbidden.
The 1970 Dodge Charger Daytona, a machine born to dominate NASCAR and scare the life out of suburban neighborhoods. Let's start with the obvious. This car didn't just look wild, it was wild. It featured a 23-inch aerodynamic nose cone and a massive rear wing nearly 2 feet tall. This wasn't just for show. Every inch was engineered for aerodynamic superiority. It was the first car in NASCAR history to break 200 miles per hour on the track. That kind of performance didn't go unnoticed. The Charger Daytona, along with its Plymouth sibling, the Superbird, became known as the rarecars, and they wiped the floor with the competition. But NASCAR wasn't thrilled. The Daytona was too good, and by 1971, they rewrote the rulebook, banning cars with certain aerodynamic modifications and engine sizes. In short, the Charger Daytona was banned for being too fast. But what about the street? Yes, Dodge had to produce a handful of street-legal versions to meet NASCAR's homologation rules, but they were barely tame. The Daytona was nearly 19 feet long, making it a nightmare to park. It was too low in front, too high in back, and too radical for most buyers. Many sat unsold at dealerships. A few were even converted back to normal Chargers just to move them off the lot. Today, of course, they're holy grails. With fewer than 550 ever built, the Charger Daytona is now one of the most iconic and collectible American muscle cars, not just because of how it looks, but because of what it did. It forced NASCAR to hit the brakes. The Daytona didn't just race, it rewrote the rules of speed.
Number 4. Meet the 1954 GM Firebird I concept, a radical experiment in propulsion, design, and imagination. So what made it crazy? For starters, it was powered by a World-Fire turbo-power gas turbine engine. That's design right, a jet engine for the road. It produced over 370 horsepower and could, in theory, push the car past 200 miles per hour. But unlike your average V8, it screamed like a fighter plane and ran hot enough to cook asphalt. Visually, the Firebird I looked like something out of a science fiction film or a missile testing facility. It featured a cockpit, swept-back wings, and a single vertical tail fin, taking direct inspiration from jet aircraft of the era. GM even referred to the car as an experimental test vehicle, not a car. Why wasn't it road legal? Because it was never meant to be. The Firebird I had no real braking system, no crash protection, and its jet exhaust could melt anything behind it. It was a rolling science experiment, created purely to wow crowds and showcase what the future might look like, not what actually could be driven. But its legacy? Massive. The Firebird I set the tone for a whole generation of concept cars and futuristic dreams. It sparked public fascination with turbine-powered vehicles and gave GM the confidence to build later equally wild Firebird concepts, 2 and 3, each more advanced and imaginative than the last. Today, the Firebird I sits in museums, not garages, as a symbol of America's mid-century obsession with speed, flight, and futurism. It never hit the road, but it launched 1,000 dreams. Number 3. The car that came at the end of the muscle car era and killed it at the end, the 1987 Buick GNX. Let's set the scene. By the mid-1980s, muscle cars were on the brink of extinction. Emissions regulations and fuel economy targets were stifling performance across the board. But Buick, of all brands, had a surprise lurking in the shadows. Meet the GNX, short for Grand National Experimental. Based on the already fast Buick Grand National, the GNX was sent to ASC/McLaren for an overhaul and came back as a street-legal killer. Under the hood, a turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 with a Garrett turbo, larger intercooler, and ceramic-coated exhaust manifolds. Buick officially claimed 276 horsepower, but real-world figures were well over 300 horsepower, and it could accelerate from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, faster than a Ferrari Testarossa or a Porsche 911 at the time. So why did it become a legend? Because it was the last gasp of American muscle from a brand known more for comfort than speed. It was menacingly black, brutally fast, and loaded with upgrades like a beefed-up transmission, improved suspension, and sleek fender scoops. Car and Driver magazine called it an axe-wielding barbarian in an all-metal tuxedo. Only 547 were built, all in 1987, and each one was numbered, making it one of the most collectible American sports cars of all time. The Buick GNX wasn't just a car, it was a statement. Even in the face of regulation, downsizing, and change, Detroit still knew how to build monsters. Number 2. This is one of the most daring experiments in automotive history, the 1963 Chrysler turbine car, a car so radical it could run on jet fuel or perfume. Let's start with technology. The Chrysler turbine car wasn't just a flashy concept, it was a reality, and 55 of them were given to ordinary Americans to test. Under the hood, a turboshaft engine, similar to the one in a helicopter. It had only 60 moving parts, started instantly in cold weather, and never needed an oil change. And the best part, it could run on anything: kerosene, diesel fuel, vegetable oil, jet fuel, even tequila. And yes, someone actually tried Chanel No. 5. So why did it disappear? Simple. The world wasn't ready. The turbine engine was loud, ran hot, and guzzled fuel like there was no tomorrow. More importantly, it emitted nitrogen oxides, which raised alarm bells as environmental regulations tightened. The government, worried about pollution and pressure from oil and auto industry lobbyists, didn't want the technology on the road. The result? Of the 55 cars produced, 46 were destroyed, most by government order. Only 9 remain, locked away in museums or private Chrysler collections. But its legacy? Impressive! The turbo car showed that radical thinking was alive and well in Detroit. It proved that car companies could break the mold, even if the world and the government weren't ready for those ideas. Ultimately, the Chrysler turbine car was a jet-powered dream that failed, not because of failure, but because of fear for its future. Number 1. A car so extreme that even its creator called it insane. Meet the 1966 Shelby Cobra 427 Super Snake, a car that took the already monstrous Cobra and turned it into something virtually uncontrollable. Let's get this straight. This wasn't your average Cobra. Carroll Shelby took the 427 cubic inch V8 engine, already a beast, and added not 1, but 2 Paxton superchargers, boosting output to over 800 horsepower. Keep in mind that all that power was squeezed into a chassis that weighed just 2,600 pounds. That's more horsepower per pound than many modern supercars. Shelby originally built it as a personal experiment, a street-legal race car with no compromises. But reality was quick to catch up. Of the two Super Snakes produced, one was sold to a close friend of comedian Bill Cosby, who famously returned it after one horrific ride. That car later went off a cliff, killing its next owner. A brutal reminder that this car wasn't just fast, it was dangerous. Why was it banned? Because it was just too much. No traction control, no anti-lock brakes, no roll cage, and it certainly wasn't street legal. It was essentially a missile with a license plate. And even Carroll Shelby admitted that it was the most ridiculous car I've ever built. Today, the only surviving Super Snake is a priceless collector's item and a symbol of what happens when speed has no limits. It's not just a car, it's a warning. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Your subscription is the fuel that keeps this channel flying. The next video's already on the launch pad. Don't miss it. Smash that bell. Let's roll out and chase the legends.